Rakdos, Lord of Riots, the leader of the guild that bears his name, and the commander that we'll be using today. 2 red and 2 black men is all it takes to summon this 6/6 flying, trampling demon monstrosity. But to cast him, you have to make your opponent lose life this turn, so the deck will have a few ways to do that. The prime thing here is creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each 1 life your opponent has lost this turn. So you can cast stuff like Mere Battle Spear for free, if you do it right. And this will just continue to put a pressure on things. So your opponents will be making silly faces when you're dropping Eldrazi for nothing. You can start with Conduit of Ruin, which will let you search for another big fat Eldrazi, and it will also make all your stuff cheaper to cast. For an example of an Eldrazi, you might want to get like a Butcher of Truths, something that helps shuffle your library and your graveyard back together. Ulamog the Infinite Gyre does the same thing. Kozilek will draw your cards. Ulamog will get rid of a nasty permanent. Or you go with the new Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger, and get rid of 2 nasty permanents and exile 20 cards from opponent's library if you could attack. Void Winnower. You want this. Because this is going to make a lot of people on the board hate you, so you got to be aware of that. But it's also going to stop a lot of removal. So where you're going to get hate at the board, you're going to want to protect yourself with stuff like Grave Pact, which is going to increase Black Devotion, which is important later. But whenever you lose a creature, all your opponents lose a creature. So you also want to play Dictate of Erebos, so you can flash this in and do some really tricksy stuff. You have removal like Toxic Deluge, which you have to be careful when you cast this, but it will get rid of indestructible things. Crux of Fate if you don't have Damnation. If you have Damnation, I would use Damnation instead. I do not have Damnation. I do have Dreadbore, though. Targeted removal that will destroy a creature or a Planeswalker. Planeswalkers are a bane. So we're going to focus on them with some Hero's Downfall. Nice instant. Destroy a creature or a Planeswalker. And Ruinous Path. It's not an instant, but it also destroys a creature or a Planeswalker. And if you really want to, you can get a 4/4. Living Death is something you want to use, but you have to be careful when you use it. Try and combo it off with a Rakdos Charm for a one-sided board wipe. Navinral's Disc will get rid of artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. Comes into play trap, gives them some time to deal with it, but it's a threat. You want to get rid of some artifacts too. This will exile them. It's cheap from Shadows over Innistrad, is it? And it exiles an artifact or a problem land, which is good. You want that. And it'll also deal damage to boot. For more expensive options, you could go with Jackknife cards or Swiss Army knife cards like Kolaghan's Command. Rakdos Charm. This is the one you want to cast right before Living Death. Exile their graveyard. Send all their current stuff into the graveyard. And get all your creatures from the graveyard back. And just go right to town. If you have some money to throw around, this will keep your Eldrazi alive. And it'll annihilate everything else. And while you're annihilating everything else, you can just take all their... If you cast Living Death with this, you're going to take all their dudes and get all your guys back. And once again, you're going to be a bit of a hate target, but it's fun. I'm going to go over a couple of lands like Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx. You'll name black as your devotion color, or your Cabal Coffers. You know, you want to be able to cast your things, and these are going to generate you mana like you've never seen before. So you're going to be able to cast all your own stuff, even if you don't have Rakdos out there, which is a good thing. We have other stuff to help, though, like Black Market, because a lot of stuff's dying, so you're going to be getting a lot of free black mana, which you can use to just hardcast things. Chromatic Lantern, even in a 2-color deck, it taps for mana, but it also fixes your colors, which is good. Or if you want a cheaper version, a Darksteel Indigo. It's indestructible and gets you 1 mana that you need. There's also Expedition Map to go get you your Nykthos or your Cabal Coffers when it's time, or anything else that you might need, because you might need something else. There's Gilded Lotus as well. This is EDH staple for a reason. 2-color deck, love it. Mana Vault, 1 mana to get 3 mana, so it seems legit, you know. Sol Ring, I don't think I have too much to say about Sol Ring. 1 mana for 2 mana, it's good. Another option could be like Thran Dynamo. It does cost 4, but it taps for 3. So that's always an advantage. And sometimes you just need to go get the card you need. For these things, we say Demonic Tutor. You could also get Beseech the Queen. Since a lot of your mana base is black, this is 3 mana. Get stuff. Diabolic Revelation, when you have lots of mana, you can go get a whole bunch of specific cards that you might need. You could Dark Petition, and sometimes this will just enable you to cast whatever you went and got. So that's good. Liliana Vess is kind of a Vampiric Tutor on a stick. If you have Vampiric Tutor, you might want to use that too. Liliana of the Dark Realms will make sure that every single turn you will hit your mana drop. Can also fetch, the dual lands that have Mountain and Swamp. Sidisi, it's just another tutor. This one is also a 4/6 Death Touch tutor. Darksteel Plate, it's indestructible. Also makes your equipped dude indestructible, like Rakdos. Nim Deathmantle, another way to protect things like Rakdos from dying, so that you can continue to cast stuff for free. Lightning Greaves, protect Rakdos. Giving him haste seems kind of legit too. You know what I'm saying? So why don't we throw in Swiftfoot Boots too? And that way we can really make sure that Rakdos always has haste, so he's always smashing in, and we're casting our stuff for free and doing what we want to do. But we also have other evil diabolic machinations, like Sire of Insanity. Eliminate everybody's hand, which you can play off of with other cards, like Asylum Visitor, so you can start drawing cards off people not having cards. Can be useful. Phyrexian Arena will make sure that you get a card every turn, an extra card. You'll lose 1 life. That's okay. Because everybody's losing life with Havoc Festival. This is kind of like one of your big combo pieces, because you combo with like Heartless Hitsugu, and you can just annihilate a game quick. Puts a clock on everyone. Makes things stressful, especially when you're dropping stuff like Cryptborn Horrors that get as big as the amount of life people have lost that turn. Palace Siege becomes an accelerated clock, or you can just get dudes back if that's what you need to do. Underworld Dreams, for every card they're drawn, they're taking more damage for that clock. Maybe they get rid of the clock. Well, play Whip of Erebos. Now all your dudes in the graveyard, you can recur them, and all your stuff has lifelink to help you recover. Ever After, if maybe you don't care if they are there for 1 turn, you want to keep them out. Let's get 2 of them. Grey Merchant of Asphodel. Gary is devastating after a Havoc Festival. So is Kokusho, the Evening Star. Just saying. You can recover from a Havoc Festival very easily. Deathbringer Thoktar. Maybe that festival's still out. You can just ping things. That's good. Dread Defiler. While Havoc Festival is out, you can start exiling really, really big guys. Guys like Butcher of Malakir. Or you can play Butcher of Malakir and have another Grave Pact effect, which is good. You could also just get fatties, like Grave Titan. Inferno Titan is also an acceptable, viable option. Machias the Unhallowed. The human thing doesn't usually do much, but your dude's coming back twice. Good. Ogre Battle Driver, when they come back, now they get +2/+0 in haste. So they're hitting even harder. Mortivore, the graveyards are going to get big. Mortivore's going to get huge, and he can regenerate. Night Howler's the same thing, but you can also bestow this on a guy like Rakdos and really do some damage. And while you're sacrificing things, you can consider stuff like Smothering Abomination to get yourself some card advantage. And if they start getting cards back, you can unload a Rakdos' Return on them, deal some damage, and empty their hand. Reiterate is a very interesting card. You can use it as a counter spell. You can use it as a second Rakdos' Return. You can use Reiterate for a lot of things. Someone counters your stuff, counter their counter. It's really, really good. I don't know why people don't use it anymore. It also has buyback, so that's something to consider. And now for the lands, like Rogue's Passage. Make Rakdos unblockable, or, any other of your big fatties. Bloodstained Mire. Go get a swamp or a mountain, or go get a blood crypt and get both. Either way, thins your deck. So does Rocky Tar Pit. It comes into play tapped, but it does the same thing Bloodstained Mire does. So it's valuable. Evolving Wilds, you know what Evolving Wilds does. Go get a basic. Go get a swamp. Go get a mountain. Put it into play tapped. Terramorphic Expanse. Another Evolving Wilds, more deck thinning, so you can draw into your threats. Akum Refuge. Comes to the battlefield tap, gains you life, which can be life-saving later. Taps for both. Dragon Skull Summit. Taps for both black and red. Enters the battlefield tap unless you control a swamp or a mountain. You'll have a swamp. Blood Crypt. This is a swamp and a mountain. 2 life isn't that much to pay in Commander. So, dual land. Sulphur Springs. This can tap for that ever-important colorless mana, or it can tap for a black or a red. Tressorn Sinks. Comes into play tap. Taps for a black or a red. If you like snowland stuff, this is a snowland. City of Brass. Taps for whatever you want. Damages you when it becomes tapped. So does Mana Confluence, except if someone else taps it, it doesn't hurt you. But it'll hurt you whenever you use it. But it'll also help you fix your colors. So will Command Tower. But you should probably have Command Tower in every Commander deck you build, I think. Unless it's monocolored. Forbidden Orchard will also get you 1 mana of any color at the cost of putting a 1/1 flying or 1/1 spirit under your opponent's control. Opal Palace, make Rakdos bigger depending how many times you have to recast them. Temple of the False God, 5 lands won't take too long. This will tap for 2 extra. It's acceleration, really. High Market's fun where you need to sacrifice something. You can gain a life while you do it. So that's useful. Seagate Wreckage. After a Sire of Insanity, this will help you draw cards, which is pretty cool. And finally, we also have, I think it's 3 mountains. You don't want too many mountains, but you definitely want to have 10 swamps. For sure. For the Liliana, for all the swamp triggers. Maybe you don't have all this stuff, though. What do? Do you go buy a bunch of cards, or do you use some of your alternatives? Here's some ideas. You could do Crypt Gas. That probably should be in the deck anyway. It'll be another clock for the Havoc Festival. It'll help you recover from a Havoc Festival. If you need mana rocks, Hedron Archive might be one of the best ones Commander has these days, so you can consider that. Blood Artist is very good in this deck because, things die a lot. And much like Zulaport Cutthroat, which is pretty much the same thing, it's going to increase that clock. Maybe you don't want to do the clock. Maybe you want to do Devotion. Cards like Phyrexian Obliterator or even Necropotence will be huge for adding those black mana symbols. Steel Hellkite. If you have one of these laying around and you need another Wrath of God effect, this will do it. It'll do it real well. And if you want more artifact or land removal, a classic like Pillage should never be overlooked. Relic of Progenitus, if you really want to do the Living Death thing. Except it's going to get rid of yours too, so be aware of that. Tormod's Crypt might be a better choice if you want to do it with the Living Death. So please, tell me, what do you think of this deck tech? What would you add to it? What would you remove from it? Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And wait patiently. It won't take long, though, for us to get back to some Commander banter. This is Dottie saying thank you. And we'll see you next time.